One of life's real mysteries is how bad people can sometimes accomplish really good things. In some ways, this feels harder to explain than the existence of evil. Bad people doing bad stuff, we kind of get. But what do you do with politicians who are wicked in their personal lives, but still somehow manage to pass good policies? What do you do with religious leaders who inspire thousands of people to turn toward God while privately betraying their faith's most basic principles? What do you do with therapists who help hundreds of people change their lives for the better while making a total hash of their own relationships? And Jesus says, a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. It's a sensible sounding principle. But to a lot of people I know, it's been disproved by real experience, which basically leaves us with two options. We either have to admit that Jesus is wrong and that bad trees really can grow pomegranates, or we have to start convincing ourselves that the pomegranates prove the bad tree really wasn't that bad deep down. Either way we go, things get pretty messy. But what if the difficulty here is actually that most of us aren't defining fruit the same way that Jesus does? To most of us, fruit is synonymous with impact. It's a measure of the amount of stuff that someone gets done in the world. Being fruitful means getting results. Let's be honest about this. Bad people can get some results. Sometimes they can even get good results. And there's a reason for that. You can be a skilled salesperson without ever buying what you're selling. Even hypocrites and outright villains can figure out how to work a market. And the fact that the salesman didn't personally taste his own product doesn't necessarily affect whether or not that product is any good. Bad people can still get good stuff done sometimes. Jesus is not in denial about this. Jesus is actually making a different point. When he says a good tree can't produce bad fruit and a bad fruit tree can't produce good fruit, he's not talking about impact. Almost the opposite, in fact. Jesus is trying to raise a conversation about character. His point is this: the truth about a person cannot be concealed forever. What's hidden and unseen will always eventually show through. No matter how hard anyone tries to keep it locked up in private, the heart will eventually rat itself out. The sticky thing about people, much like trees, is you can't always tell from the surface which ones have begun internally rotting. You can't just look at someone and know if they're being slowly consumed by greed or contempt or rage or lust. You can't always immediately tell when they've started to secretly feel untouchable or entitled or indifferent to other people. If it was easy to tell, we wouldn't be shocked by scandal after scandal. We wouldn't give our hearts to people who betray us. Appearances can be deceiving. Impact can distract us by hooking our eyes. But if you're watching for it, sooner or later, character starts to reveal itself. It leaks like those travel toiletry bottles that all of space-age science and human fortune can't seem to manage to seal. It just comes out. If this is true, it has implications for how we construct our own lives, and also how we think about who to trust. Let's start with us. All of us have two parts of our lives. There are the unseen internal parts that exist only between us and God, and maybe the 10,000 companies that currently own our browser history. And then there's the external parts of our lives that we put on display to the world. There are the internal organs and the public face, the profile image with the filter on it, and then there's the person who hits the alarm at 5:30 a.m. There will always be a bit of a gap between these two things. Not everything is meant to be public, but nobody should fool themselves into thinking that faking it is a winning life strategy. Every human being is building up an internal highway system of thoughts and attitudes and emotions and judgments. We enforce this highway system day after day by what we watch and what we think about, and even the feelings we feed. We add layer after layer after layer on that pavement. No one else can see the track we're putting down, but sooner or later, and probably sooner, stuff is going to start driving down it that will show up in the world. Here is a wise rule to live by. No one should plant or water things they don't expect to grow. What we cultivate in the parts of our lives where no one is looking is what we eventually become. As for other people, we can all appreciate a person who can get good stuff done. But impact alone doesn't tell us who's trustworthy. Impact doesn't even tell us where God really is. A good fruit can be celebrated, no matter where it comes from. Evil hung Jesus on a cross, and God brought good fruit out of that tree. God can grow good fruit from anything. But trusting a bad tree for good fruit is playing with fire. Choosing impact over character is always a devil's bargain, because character will produce real-world outcomes too that can't be hidden or held back forever. Something will always eventually grow. Many people through history have chosen a bad tree for its high yield potential and discovered in the end, to their regret, that all the fruit was poisoned. The truth of the tree will always tell. Let's hear what Jesus says about this in Luke 6, verses 43 to 45. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are not picked from bramble bushes. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. I'm Meghan Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. If you'd like a discussion guide to help you with personal reflection or conversation with others, you can find those available at patreon.com/JesusCollectiveCommunity. Thanks so much for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and I'll see you next time.